Happy 2023 everyone, this is my first video of the year and I want to kick things off by wishing you a lot of health, a lot of prosperity and most importantly, to never stop chasing your goals. My first video of the year is going to be about this drone, the DJI AVATA, and my long-term impressions of it. Let's get right into it. So I first started using this drone a couple of weeks before it was officially announced. I was able to get it early, I was able to do a lot of flying with it, and I released all of my impressions from it in my initial review of the DJI AVATA on my channel. However, a lot has happened since then because DJI released a couple of firmware updates about this drone that made it significantly better in some areas, but also a lot worse in some other ones. And let's start with the bad thing first, which is remote ID. In the US and I believe in some other countries as well, but don't quote me on that, you now have to use your phone connected to the goggles at all times so it can transmit your GPS coordinates to the local authorities if needed to comply with remote ID regulations. This is a huge bummer for many people, I'm sure. It would have been a bummer for me if I just want to fly. Now I need to also connect my phone to the goggles, I need to keep it on, I need to share my location with the authorities, but that's just some regulations that you have to comply with. However, when DJI introduced this new firmware to comply with remote ID, they also gave us something great, and that is 10-bit color on the AVATA. With this, you have a significantly better looking final image that holds a lot more detail, a lot more information that you can later recover in post, especially if you are shooting in decent color profile. That way you can utilize 10-bit video and bring back a lot more details, bring back a lot more sharpness and just whole lot more information in your footage to make it look even better. So that's something that I definitely appreciate and like. I can see the difference, and unfortunately I completely lost the majority of the footage that I've been gathering in the past couple of months with the AVATA because I had a massive SSD failure and I didn't have a backup. I know, don't laugh at me. It's too bad for me to even think about it. So unfortunately, I lost most, if not all of my footage with the AVATA that I've been gathering ever since I got this drone. So lesson learned on that, but unfortunately I cannot show you the 8-bit footage that I've been recording on this drone because now I only have a couple of flights with the new firmware that has 10-bit video and I can only show you that new footage that is definitely very impressive looking in my opinion. So in terms of supporting the product, I can say that DJI has done a great job and we've seen a couple of new features, a couple of new settings being introduced to the AVATA. So in that regard, I am very happy with it. Now, as you can see, my drone looks a little bit different compared to the original one because I have a couple of modifications done to it, but these are small things and I'll get to them in a second, but what I wanted to talk about first is the build quality, which has been impressive. At first I was a little bit skeptical seeing that this is a plastic frame. I was thinking that it's not going to withstand any big crashes. However, I was proved wrong because this is still in one piece. Everything is super solid, super strong, and there are no big scratches, no big dents, no cracks, nothing on the plastic frame of the drone. Everything is rock solid, and I was really pleasantly surprised to see that this can actually sustain a lot of damage without cracking, without breaking, and everything is just great on the AVATA. Now, granted, there is a different way of flying this because, as we all know, it's a Cinewhoop. It's not made to be used as a 5-inch. I know some people just want to use this as their one and only FPV drone. They want to do flips and rolls and they want to race this and follow fast moving objects and cars and all sorts of other things. But in reality, that's not exactly how you are supposed to use the AVATA. Of course, you can do some of these things, but if they don't work out 100% ideally, then the drone is not to blame, because the drone is meant to be a cinewhoop, and the cinewhoops in general are, you know, a little bit more smoothly, slowly moving drones that are supposed to be very precise and track some objects, but not in a very fast pace. So for that, the AVATA is still great. If you, however, want to use it as a 5-inch drone to do some flips and rolls and acrobatic movements, then it's definitely not ideal, because it's very top heavy. You have this big battery on top, which gives you great flight time, which we'll get to in a second, but it's not very aerodynamic in a sense that it's going to give you that smooth flow that usually you can get with a 5-inch freestyle quad. So I'm giving big thumbs up to the AVATA on how it flies, how it handles, and in general, the flying experience with this drone has been great. When it comes to the camera of the AVATA, I'm super happy with it, especially with the 10-bit video added to it. Now it's a great looking footage that comes out of the AVATA, and I'm just super happy with all the possibilities I have, because when I'm shooting in D-Cine-alike and 10-bit, when I have full control over the sharpness, over the saturation of the footage, over how I stabilize the footage, because I usually disable Rocksteady and I apply stabilization later in post by using gyroflow, then I have full control over how the footage ends up looking like. And this is the best that you can give me when it comes to having freedom to decide what I want to do with the footage. Now, my only little complaint is that I would have preferred to have even more frame rates available on the AVATA. Now, recently we had 4K 30 frames per second being added to the AVATA, but it's not really ideal for flying, especially in the goggles. It's not really smooth, and it's not something that I can recommend. As I film my videos in 25 frames per second, which is kind of the norm here in Europe, I mostly use 50 frames per second on the AVATA because that's double the frame rate that I currently shoot at, which kind of eliminates some jitters, some not very smooth sections of the footage, as opposed to if you shoot in 60 and you edit on a 25 or 24 frames per second timeline. The battery life of this drone is simply amazing, because it's constantly giving me about 12 to 13 minutes of flight time, depending on my style of flying. If I'm going for a faster pace flight, then of course it's limited to less, maybe 7, 8, 9 minutes. It really depends on how much throttle input you're giving. But if you're cruising and you're just enjoying the scenery, if you're passing through some small gaps and you're not really constantly on the throttle, then you can squeeze out maybe 13 minutes of flight time with this drone, which is amazing, especially compared to a regular cinewhoop, which is usually flying for about 4 to 5, even maybe 6 minutes maximum. So this gives you double than that. So that's great. I recently changed the motors of the drone. This is one of the modifications that I was going to tell you about, to these AxisFlying 157 motors, which have higher kV. They're a lot more powerful, and I would say it makes a big difference to the flight characteristics of this drone. Now, I wouldn't really say that this drone was slow before, but it really kind of needed a little bit more kick out of it, and now with these motors you definitely have it. I wouldn't really say this modification is absolutely necessary. It's not a must-have, but if you are not afraid of working on your drone or tearing it completely apart to solder some new motors, it will give you some really nice kick. When you are pushing the throttle to the maximum, you will feel a lot more power. This drone now is a lot more agile, and it moves a lot faster compared to what it was before. Now, granted, like I said before, this is not going to make it a 5-inch. However, if you want to do some dives or some faster tracking of an object that is moving very quickly, or if you want to be able to, you know, just cruise a little bit faster, you can get those motors. I actually really like them. I will link them down below in the description. The AxisFlying 157, if I'm not mistaken, that was the number of these motors. They're really good, but you need to be aware it's not a very easy job to tear the drone apart and put them on. Actually, I broke one of the connectors of the camera while putting the drone back together, and the drone was in a repair shop for quite a while, so I can get the whole motherboard replaced, which was a big pain in the butt. But with that said, I am very happy with the motors and how they fly, and of course that also limits the battery life to maybe 8-9 minutes of more faster flying and maybe 10 minutes of cruising. It really comes down to what your needs are, and if you want to work on your drone, maybe you can get those motors. Like I said, it's nice to have them, but they're not mandatory to have. With these motors, I also wanted to put some more aggressive props to see how it will work on the AVATA, and these are Gemfan props that fit the AVATA very well. I'm also going to link them in the description down below. And now this feels like a totally different drone compared to the stock one. So it's a nice thing to be able to change. Of course, props are very easy to change, so maybe you can give these a go if you want to see how they will change the flight style of this drone. But yeah, Gemfan props are always great to have, and I'm very happy with this current setup of the AVATA right now. It goes without saying that it's great to have this built-in protection in the AVATA that helps you keep the drone hovering in the air if it loses signal. If you push it too far and you completely lose signal, it will just hover in the air, wait for you until you get closer to it so you can regain that signal back and you can fly it back to you, or you can set it to return to home automatically. But I do not recommend that because you can encounter some obstacles in the way and crash and even break the drone even more. So I would advise you to set it to hover in case it loses signal, and just go a little bit closer to it so you can regain that signal back. So that's great. And also generally this whole setup of the drone, the remote, and most importantly the goggles, I feel like it's a great setup to have. It just works really well, especially the quality inside the goggles, the DVR, everything is just perfect, and it brings up so much more enjoyment out of this hobby and out of the flying in general when you can see so much more inside the goggles. You have a lot more details, a lot more information that your eyes can take in. So definitely the new goggles too are the right way to go, even like I said a couple of times, without being super comfortable, they are amazing to wear on the head and to enjoy the flight with. So all in all, I would say that the AVATA is a fantastic drone. It still is, and especially with the upgrades from DJI recently with 10-bit video and all of these little things that they have added along the way, I think the AVATA is a great option for anyone looking to buy a Cinewoop. Now, the big question, at least for me, is am I going to keep this drone? And I'm on the fence, not because I don't want to keep using the AVATA. Like I said, I really love this drone. But with these drones, and especially now with the O3 air units, we are kind of spoiled because the air unit is that small. The O3 air unit is just super tiny. And I'm getting a little bit of an itch to build or to buy, I'm not exactly sure yet, a very small sub 250 gram O3 air unit drone that I can use to go through small gaps, because usually when it comes to Cinewoops, they are great to fly close to people, which I don't do too much of. Now, what I'm mostly interested in is flying through very small gaps. Hitting those gaps is very enjoyable. It gives me great satisfaction. And those type of shots are what I'm after. So because of that, the AVATA is not, the most portable and the smallest drone out there. It's also over 250 grams, so it uses the same camera as the O3 air unit. So that leads me to believe that by using this same camera, but on a smaller body with different flight characteristics, but a very lightweight option, a lot more lightweight than this one, I can probably get better results for what I'm after, what I'm going for. So because of that, I'm still on the fence whether I should keep flying the AVATA or sell it or give it to some friend, because I obviously cannot fly 10 drones at the same time. I cannot bring them every single time with me. So I'm always looking for the most optimal setup that will work best for me. So that's the only reason why I'm on the fence whether I should keep the AVATA or not. But other than that, when it comes to is it a good drone? Definitely. Most definitely. I can highly recommend it to you, even that many months after the official release. It's still a great product. I still haven't found issues with it. Now I know some people have been complaining about this drone falling out of the sky randomly, but I've never had any of those issues and never seen anyone who flies properly to have those issues. Most of the issues I've seen are coming from people who have no idea what they're doing, and then they rush to Facebook to complain. So yeah, no issues with the AVATA on my end and from anyone else that I know that flies the AVATA. So I can highly recommend you to check it out if you're looking for a Cine to buy. And there you guys have it. This is everything I have for you in today's video. I hope you found it informative. I'm always trying to give out my personal feedback and my point of view of how I personally use this drone and how it fits my workflow. So hopefully that can help you decide for yourself. Please let me know if it was the case by clicking on the like button, and maybe drop me a comment to let me know what you think about the AVATA. Subscribe to the channel to give me a great start of 2023. Thank you so much for the support. This is Mike from Drone Supremacy, and I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.